Now the first item I'm going to be decluttering is this Smashbox Photo Finish Foundation Primer. I've had this for a long time and it's pretty much almost done, which is a primary reason why I am going to be decluttering it. And then also it's one of those things where because this is a silicone based primer, it almost feels like a gel moisturizer. Kind of, it's like the same thing. And because I do have a gel moisturizer that I use a lot of times during the daytime, it defeats the purpose of me having this because it doesn't really make a difference. So I am going to be decluttering this. The next primer we're going to be decluttering is going to be this Makeup Forever Step 1 Equalizer. Again, another primer that I've had for a long time. I don't know if primers expire because there's no date on the package, but if they do, the two that I have to mention are definitely expired because I've had them for a long time. This one is a mattifying primer. I typically use this more on my T-zone, but I find that even with mattifying primers, my oils still come through and they don't really control it that much. The one that I did use, which I actually preferred to this one, was the Becca Ever Matte Primer. That one is a matte primer and that one actually controls my oils a lot better than this one, but I ran out of that one. So this is one that I am going to be getting rid of as well. For one, because it's old. Two, it doesn't really make that much of a difference because I still get oily anyways. So yes, so this is the Makeup Forever Step 1 Equalizer. It's a good primer, but it's for what I need it for, which is mattifying. It doesn't really make that big of a difference because I would still get oily on it. If you are oily and you are looking for a mattifying primer, definitely try the Becca one. That one is my preference. Next category is going to be foundation, of course. And these are the two foundations that I am going to be decluttering because the L'Oreal one, which is this one, is expired. The expiration date was in 2020, so don't judge me, but it's definitely expired. And then also because of the shade. So the primary reason that I'm also getting rid of them is because the tone of these foundations, because with both of these foundations, they're favorites of mine from the drugstore, but because they expanded their shade range, it made it a little bit more difficult for me to find my exact shade. Because they've made alterations to some of the other ones. And so I tried these out thinking that they would work for me. And even though they do and I can make them work, they're a little bit warmer, a little bit more on the orange side, which I don't really like that look because you can clearly see the difference, especially like around your hairline, and I hate that. So I am going to be looking for a better shade in both of these foundations, but I love the way that they wear, the way that they feel. They're extremely long lasting. They have kind of like a satin / matte finish, but more on the satiny side. They feel very comfortable on the skin. And so I love both of them, like I mentioned, but it's just I need to find better shades. So that's the L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear foundation. The shade that I have is 515. And then the Maybelline Matte and Poreless foundation, and that one is in 340 Cappuccino. Now onto concealers. We have two of them that we're also getting rid of. We have the Maybelline Instant Rewind Eraser, and then we have the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer. Similar to the foundations, the shades don't really work well for me at all. When it comes to the Age Rewind, the main reason I'm getting rid of it is because I don't like the packaging, because it's like this, I don't even know what to call this, whatever this thing is. It's like a fabric type of feel to it, and I don't like it at all, and the shade doesn't actually work for me. I don't really like the shade on my skin tone. And then the Hydrating Concealer, I tried it and I made the concealer like, you know, work, but I wasn't really impressed by the formula itself, and so I'm getting rid of it for that. And then also I feel like the shade range is really weird, where it was hard for me to find a perfect concealing shade for me. All of them are just very bright, and this shade in particular is the medium beige, and this one is definitely more on like the yellow golden type side, and I hate the way that it looks. It's very brightening, but it also just messes up the other products that I have because of how like yellow and golden it is. So I just don't like the shade of this one either, and I didn't really care too much about the formula for me to repurchase it. So both of these concealers are leaving. Now let's talk about powders. We have one loose powder and then we have one pressed powder. So for the loose powder, this is the Cover FX Perfect Setting Powder. This almost, like the shade of it almost looks kind of like a honey shade. Actually, what's the shade of this? This is Translucent Light, but I feel like the tone of the actual powder itself is a little bit more on like the honey side. So it looks like it would work also really well for deeper skin tones if you do like kind of like a warmer undertone for your powders. It is translucent, but there's nothing really, again, I wasn't really impressed by the formula. It didn't make my makeup last longer. It didn't mattify or anything like that. It almost gives me a similar feel to the Laura Mercier powder, but the Laura Mercier helps to control my oils a lot better and also helps for my makeup to be more long lasting. And this one didn't really do anything, to be honest with you. It's a nice powder, but for my skin tone, I feel like the Laura Mercier just makes more sense. So I'm going to be getting rid of this one. And then this one is the Makeup Forever Duo Matte Powder in 214. This one, I've had this powder for a long time. The reason I'm getting rid of this one is actually because I purchased the same one for my mom as well, but the shade does not work for her. So she gave me the color back. And so I'm just gonna keep the one that she gave me back because she barely used it. And I'm just gonna get rid of the one that I started using when I first started using this powder. But it's basically, hello there. I don't know if you guys can see me in my hair cap, but it's basically a matte pressed powder, and it also adds coverage as well. I did a video a long time ago sharing with you guys how if I don't really want to put liquid foundation, how I just use this to add coverage, and it works really great for that. So I love this powder itself, but I am getting rid of the older one and just keeping the newer one. So moving on to blush, I have this, let me just open it up. I have this MAC blush in Raisin, and this is one that I purchased, again, a long time ago. I don't know if these things have expiration dates, but if they do, this should definitely be expired. I've had this for a very long time in my collection, and the reason I'm getting rid of this is because on my skin, it doesn't look, because I feel like the way that I've always heard a lot of people describe this one back in the day when it was super popular was more of like a peachy tone blush. But this to me comes up more like a berry toned blush. On my skin, it almost looks like, and I know this is gonna sound horrible, but it almost looks like the redness that your skin would give off if you were bruised, like that bruised reddish berry tone look. That's what it looks like on my skin, and I don't really care for that look, you know. I feel like when it comes to blush, I do prefer more of like an orange, peachy, you know, more like neutral brown tone, something that looks more like your skin but better, but doesn't look like obviously it's blush. And this one, like I mentioned, it looks like a bruise on my skin. So I don't like it, and I'm going to get rid of it. I've used it a few times, but it's just not my favorite shade when it comes to blush, so I'm getting rid of this one. Speaking of, again, an orange tone blush, this is the Makeup Geek Summer Fling blush. The reason I'm getting rid of this one is because it's too orange, and it's also super powdery, like almost like a chalky type blush. Okay, let me, if you guys hear shaking and footsteps in the background, it is my dog walking around. But yeah, so hopefully you guys can actually see the shade of it, but it's a very bright, like coral type orange shade. And oh my goodness, okay. And the reason is, I don't know if you guys can even see on the packaging, it's very like chalky, powdery. Like when you put your brush in there, it has a lot of kickback, and I hate that about it. And also the shade itself is just too bright. It's almost like a clown-like orange. And so Even though I was hoping that this would work, it's too much on the brighter coral side, and that's not what I was looking for. So that's going to be Makeup Geek Summer Fling Blush. We're going to be doing highlighters. So the two highlighters I'm getting rid of is this Tarte highlighter in Goddess Glow. I love the packaging. The packaging is really pretty. It almost looks like, I don't know, like an Arabian princess type thing. Hopefully you guys can see the shade of this. It's a very bright champagne light powder. I feel like Tarte definitely caters more to lighter skin tones, at least with some of the products that I've tried. The actual product itself is definitely more of like a glittery type highlighter. It almost feels like, or it almost looks like one of those that you would want to kind of use to highlight your body more than your face, because it just gives you like a nice glittery sheen almost, and it would look beautiful on the skin, but I'm not really into that. So to me, there's no reason for me to keep it. But I just like the packaging because the mirror is beautiful in this. So that's going to be the Tarte highlighter. The next one is, again, I don't even know if they discontinued this, but this is the Laura Geller highlighter in Gilded Honey. And this is what it looks like. The little swirl type of design that they have on here is beautiful. The shade of it is beautiful as well. The reason I'm getting rid of this is because this is one of those highlighters that you almost want people to know it's a highlighter. And I feel like for me, when it comes to makeup in general, but especially highlighters, I want it to look like I have a glow from within, not like I put on a bunch of highlighter on my skin. And that's what I got a lot of times when I wore this, and I don't like that look. So it's a beautiful highlighter, but as I mentioned, it just doesn't work for me. And then also the issue that I have, I'm gonna try to show this without, okay, let me just close this. The highlighter came out the little thing. Can you guys see that? It came out of it. So, and it's not because I had it for a long time. Literally it happened like within the second use. It just popped out of the little pan. So eyebrows, we're going to be getting rid of these eyebrow pencils. So we have the ABH Brow Wiz, and then we have the NYX Micro Brow Pencil. I really feel like the NYX is definitely a good alternative to the ABH. So if you don't want to spend, what, 20 something dollars for this, then definitely just get the NYX one. The reason I'm getting rid of them is because, for one, in general, I realize that I prefer to do my eyebrows with powder than I do a pencil. I know a lot of times people feel like the pencil, you have more control, but for me, it feels like the opposite, because girl, I can't draw, okay? Like, it's just not my gift whatsoever. And so I feel like with the powder, I have a little bit more control with how much product I apply, versus the pencil. I feel like once you keep trying to fill it in, it looks very harsh, very bold, and it just doesn't work for me. The next item is going to be a mascara. This one's getting decluttered because it's actually empty. It's fully dried out, it's empty, and so that's why I'm getting rid of this. But this is the L'Oreal Telescopic Carbon Black Mascara. I have a bunch of lip products that I'm going to be showing here. Okay, so we're going to be getting rid of, start off with this one. This is the MAC Plush Glass in, what is this, Nice Buzz. It's basically kind of like a glittery type of gloss, but I don't like the texture of it, and I feel like it doesn't really do anything to the look. And I do have an alternative that I prefer, which I don't think they offer it anymore, but I'll tell you guys what the alternative is. And it is the, who is this with? I know this was Makeup by Shayla and maybe ColourPop collaboration, I think. This is in the shade Drippin', but it's kind of like the same vibe, but the difference is that the tone is a lot better with the Makeup by Shayla, and so that's why I'm getting rid of the Plush Glass. Now this one I'm getting rid of because I do have another one from MAC that I prefer the undertone for. They are very similar, but this one is definitely a little bit more thicker, because I feel like when it comes to ABH lip glosses, they almost feel like a lipstick or like a liquid lipstick, but in lip gloss form, so they're a little bit thicker and very, very pigmented, and so I don't need both necessarily. Even though the MAC one is a little bit stickier, I do feel like I like the undertone of that one a little bit better. So this one is in the shade Toffee. Yeah, so this one is in the shade Toffee, and it's a nice lip gloss, perfect for like every day, especially for like tan to deeper skin tones. But again, like I mentioned, I just don't want to keep two lip glosses that look identical, and so this one I am going to be getting rid of. The next one is going to be another ABH product, which is the liquid lipstick in Ashton. Yes, in Ashton. This one definitely dries it, because in the packaging it looks like it would be more of a terracotta type shade, but it actually dries down to a more mauve, like on the mauve side, and I just don't care for it, and so that's why I'm getting rid of it. The next one is going to be the Kylie matte liquid lipstick in Boss, and I actually prefer the lip liner to this one, because the lip liner almost looks like an orange tone red. It almost reminds me of, what's that MAC lipstick that everybody like loved back in the day? Oh my god, I can't think of it, but it's like a bright red, but it's more like on the orangey cool tone side, and I love that with the lip liner. But the liquid lipstick itself is more on like the coral side of red, and I don't like that, so I'm going to be getting rid of this one as well. And then I have this lip gloss I'm going to be getting rid of, and I left it for last because this one tripped me out, because it is a pretty color. It's like a bubblegum pink with a little bit of a peachy undertone, like, but it's more pink, more on the pink side. But I feel like on my lips and on my skin, it does give off a little bit of a peachiness to it. The reason I'm getting rid of this is because this separates like a mug. Like, I have never tried a lip gloss that separates so much, and I am going to insert a clip of the swatches that I did on my hand and show you guys kind of like this separation, like bubbliness that it has on my skin, and it's the weirdest thing, and so I just don't trust the formula, you hear me? So that's going to be this, and this is the Stila what are these called, Beauty Boss lip gloss in Casual Friday. I like the packaging of this, but this one just separates and creates like little, I don't know, it just is very, very weird. I'll insert the clip so you guys can see it. So that's going to be the last item I am going to be getting rid of.